Miss Brandy and Miss Marcella, and we're gonna make some art. We sent you home with certain things, and we just wanted to explore the materials with you. You got a piece of printer paper, a piece of watercolor paper, an index card, which you might have more of these at home, and you might have more of these at home as well. Coffee filter, you might have those. Your parents might want them to make coffee if they're out. That's okay. Cotton balls, cotton swabs, and then we sent you home with this little guy here. Thanks, Miss Lou Ann Brown. I think you donated these like
a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and now look, perfect craft sharing things. You have a pipette, you have a paintbrush, you have some oil pastels. They might be little tiny pieces like this.
Variety of colors.
Yeah, nobody has probably the same color. You have the paper bag in which all the things came in. Mm-hmm. You also need some water. I like to have multiple containers of water because watercolor tends to get your water kind of colory. Mm-hmm. We started out with mostly purple watercolor, but then found that there were other colors. So some of you might have yellow or red. Orange, one of those colors, okay? I think that's all the materials. And if you have access to it, they don't have this in the bag.
Right.
But this is salt, just table salt. So if you can find a little container in the kitchen or somewhere else and pour some salt, it'll be fun with the watercolor. And we also grabbed some other materials. I really like to play with Sharpie markers and then also regular markers. Okay, so they do different things. So I'm just gonna quickly, we'll let you get your things out. And Miss Marcella and I are gonna doodle a little bit. I'm gonna use my regular markers, and Miss Marcella is gonna use her permanent markers on one. We'll do that.
Okay.
We'll take turns. That way there's
Cool.
two of us doing things,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So she's gonna work on that, and I'm gonna work on this, and you're gonna set all your things up, okay? So we're just gonna play for a minute. Doodle for a minute.
Do I need to like break it into different squares?
You could. So this paper you might find doesn't accept the watercolor very well because it's real thin and there's not much for the watercolor to do. But we can fold it and then fold it again, and you could do like a little experimentation page with your watercolors. So I have 4 different sheets of paper there now. So yeah, we can do some drawing. My favorite is circles. I love circles, so that's what I draw a lot of.
Mine's triangles.
Miss Marcella loves triangles, and she even has triangles
I do.
on her shirt. Look at that. Diamonds, maybe. And we're doodling with different types of markers. And I'm gonna go ahead and use my oil pastel on one of them. So little tiny bits. The trick with the oil pastel is to push it so hard that you can't see anything past it. Because it's if you just do it real light, so look at the difference between this one and this one. If you do it real light, this is going to do something different than if you do it really, really dark. So you could pretend and practice with that. Do some dark areas. And my piece is super tiny, but I'm gonna be able to do a lot of work on here.
Dear adults, you can pause at any moment if
That you need to.
feel like you're not doing the same things we are.
Mm-hmm. And we're doodling. So we've got oil pastel here, and then I've got regular markers here. And Miss Marcella's got her permanent markers, and then she's using her oil pastel as well. So if we've got a few doodles while Miss Marcella's still doodling and I'm just playing along, I'm gonna break out my paintbrush, and I'm going to, Miss Sarah just walked in. We have friends.
Hi, Miss Sarah.
Hi, Miss Sarah.
We're making a video.
We're making a video. We're playing with watercolors. We sent home things to friends. So I'm gonna take my paintbrush and I'm gonna pick up some water, and I'm gonna put it in my tiny little pan here. This little guy's called a pan of watercolor. So I like to put a lot of water in there so I have lots of playing time. Watercolors should be translucent. So opaque versus translucent. Opaque is I cannot see through it. Our paper bag is opaque. I cannot see you through this paper bag. Our water containers are translucent. There is some resistance, but I can still see you. It's blurry, but I can still see you through it. So watercolor should be translucent. I'd pick up a bit of watercolor and then just start painting. We don't have specific project painted for you, but we can play with that watercolor. I'm going over top those oil pastels. That's my favorite. We both went for that. We're like, oil pastels.
I need more water.
So my oil pastels, they resist the water. And the only other thing that I can ever think of is like resisting arrest. What does
That's
it mean?
not it. That's not the one.
Well,
that you want.
it is.
You don't want to do that.
You don't want to resist arrest. But what do you think of? Hi, I am the police officer. Come hang out with me. And if you resist arrest, what do?
You run away.
You run away. The water runs away from the oil pastel. What else? How else could I do that, Miss Marcella,
I don't
without
know.
creating bad citizens?
Well, I don't know. I'll think on that.
Yeah,
How do we explain resist?
Resist.
Just watch that watercolor run away.
Run away. It runs away. All right. So
Ooh.
I find that if I have it really, really light, and it kind of more looks like crayons instead of oil pastel, that my watercolor doesn't resist as well. It will actually soak into those lines.
Yeah.
So that's fun about it. Yeah. So if you've got any parts, yeah.
I have like this line. I had a little space in there, and you can see all the purple pooling in there.
Sometimes that's real fun too.
I like that.
So I'm going to go over to my marker one. I'm just going to take a bit of water. I don't actually need a whole lot of watercolor for that, but if I just take a bit of water and put it over top my marker marks, it will start to blur it. And it didn't do it as well on the printer paper. Yesterday we were playing with the marker and we did it on the watercolor paper. So I think it does different things, the printer paper versus the watercolor paper, because the watercolor paper, it was like whoosh.
Is that why we sent different kinds of paper for
So that
you to see?
Can try. It's science and art.
All right, well, I'm going to go on the permanent marker then. It doesn't do anything. It goes just right over it. That marker's not moving.
I like it when it moves. I'm going to put some water, I wonder, it's Crayola Super Tips. I wonder if they're just better markers.
That might be. Do you want a not Crayola brand?
It's starting to do it on my printer paper. It just didn't do it the way it did yesterday. Try that again. Yeah, there it goes. So the marker, like our regular markers that you might have at home, will create their own paint, which is wonderful. Ooh. And then I'm going to put some purple on there. All right, so we did the oil pastels, we did some markers, we did some Sharpie or permanent markers. Permanent markers don't do anything. They will stay where you put them and they will not bleed and they will be wonderful. So you could draw a big, beautiful picture and then watercolor over top of it and it's wonderful. We also have, we're good. We also have our paper bag. We have our watercolor paper, we have our index paper. What I really love, one of my favorites, is the salt. So you get some watercolor happening. You need your paper to be fairly wet. You need to have a little puddle happening of your watercolors.
I'm going to try it on the index card.
Do it. I'm going to do it, continue on my watercolor paper. The watercolor paper is thicker than the other papers, and it has a bit of a texture to it. So texture is how something feels, and it has a little bit of a bumpy texture. That's how you tell them apart, because they might not be exactly the same size as what we're doing here. The cool thing about the salt is that it really likes the water. So if I get enough of that on there, it wants a lot of it. I'm going to pick it up and put more. Oh yeah, that's fun. Put a tiny pile of salt and then touch your watercolor to it. Like get it really saturated, a lot of color, and then touch your salt. And it goes, and it goes down inside of there. It's quite wonderful.
It's so exciting.
So the salt, when it's put onto the salt, when put on the paper, when in a pool of watercolor, it like attracts that watercolor. It pulls it to each little grain.
All that water.
Yeah, so then it creates a super pigmented, super bright color around the salt particle, and it pulls it away from everything else. So then you've got little halos happening here. We have other things for you too. We have cotton balls. So if you have a bunch of watercolor on your paper, if you soak it up with the cotton ball, it will create like a cloud looking thing, like our last name's Cloud.
Oh, yeah. Purple clouds.
Purple clouds. And that's okay, because we are the artists. We can figure out whatever color we need our day to be. Dr. Seuss, My Many Colored Days. So try that. And I found that the cotton ball works a little better if it's a little saturated already.
A little wet?
Yeah, if it's a little wet already, so you can pick some water up and then... But it has to have enough information on there, so mine
grab it.
Yeah, and mine's already soaked through. But play with it. See if you can't
I'm gonna
grab some watercolor.
That's what I'm gonna try.
And then try stamping. That's a nice texture. It makes little bubbles, and then you can also then try this stuff on your paper bag if you run out of all the things, and see what it'll do on your paper bag.
See how saturated I can make that little cup.
And I'm gonna add more, and I'm gonna pick some up.
Nice.
We haven't used our coffee filter yet. Wiggle it around just a little bit. We don't want to dig in our watercolor pans, but you can wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. This little guy here has a bulb, and you squeeze the bulb, and then you put it under the water and let go, and it sucks it up. Okay, so I put a whole bunch of water. You could even, look at Marcella.
Well, that would have
fill up your pan. Because we didn't send the best paintbrushes, but we had a lot of them to share.
Be careful
with
not to overflow your pan.
I bet they are washable, but I am not guaranteeing that.
Crayola watercolor.
So I'm going to squeeze it. I'm going to suck it up. And then play. Like, can you turn your coffee filter upside down? And
I was going to flatten mine out.
I like dripping.
You know what?
I like dripping.
I want to see what this
Because if
does.
I hold it way up, I get, permission or whatever. Here at the Mac, you can get messy, and we're okay with that. But, your parents might not want you dripping things everywhere. So, but I like to drip it, because if I do it from way far up, it makes little splatters.
Well, I'm going to see what my oil pastel does on a coffee filter.
Oh, that was good.
That is
a double drip it. So oil pastel on your coffee filter.
Yeah, let's see. I've never tried it.
And look at that.
Yep, it soaks into...
And it left a little stain around the original drop, and there's like
was that from your
tiny... It was from here.
Okay. Let's see.
How else could you use the pipettes, friends?
Ooh. So
Miss Marcella put her oil pastel on there, and we figured out that oil pastel resists the water. So it's trying everything it can.
Out.
It's trying everything it can to get out of the way.
Let's try some more.
And I had some other materials out on the table in hopes that you could do your watercolors and then let it all dry. And then maybe if you have at home some scissors and some tape and some staples or glue, that you could then cut these pieces out, and maybe, this bag is super wonderful for a puppet, right? So we could make a puppet if we could glue some eyes on here and maybe a big tongue, or what else could you do with it? These guys are wonderful on the window because they are a bit of transparent, that the sun will shine through them and they'll create wonderful, beautiful things.
I like that.
I I think that's good. What do you think?
We've got some Q-tips.
We got Q-tips, yeah. And how can we use those?
In addition to your paintbrush, it's like a hybrid between the cotton ball and your paintbrush, right? So you can get that wet. I haven't used my watercolor paper yet. I'm going to use my watercolor paper.
And then it makes
nice
Miss Brandy's favorite shape.
little dots.
I mean,
Or
what's your favorite shape?
squiggles.
Let us know. We should do a poll.
What's your favorite shape today, friends?
Oh, what it'll do here. Oh, that's nice.
I like coffee filters. Again, don't use without your parents' permission.
I mean, you can use the one that's in.
Yes, you can use the one
that
we sent to you. And if you are so in love with them and your adult won't let you use the ones we have them.
We have more.
Let us know. Oh, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing a couple more of these videos for next week and making some more little packs for you. In the meantime, if there's something that you really want to use or really think would help you with art at home, let us know. If you've seen it here, we will do our best. If you send us a Facebook message or an email, or we're really bad at answering the phone or checking voicemails. Horrible. Don't do that. We will get it ready for you, and then we can set it, and you can come in and get it if you need things.
Oh my goodness, we need
art.
pipe cleaners, or
You let
I
us
need
know.
to have a pencil, or I need a yellow marker, or
Let us
felt.
know. Next week.
We have so much felt.
I'm gonna have some
We
felt
are
ones.
going to have some templates. I saved this. I stole it from Mr. Paul and Mr. Asa. Their cereal
Some are
box.
delicious.
Save your cereal boxes for next week.
Or granola bar boxes, or
your noodle
cookie,
boxes.
just thin
Very thin.
cardboard.
Yeah.
Noodles. Ooh, I didn't think about my noodle box.
And do you have scissors at home?
Yeah,
You know, so
if
we
you
don't
need scissors,
we
let
don't
us
we don't
know.
have enough to give to everybody, but if somebody needs scissors, like we have enough to share with a few friends. And we have tape, and we have, so the next week we're gonna do something with tape and scissors and those boxes, and let us know if you don't have those things, and then we can share those. And we have some boxes, but I think friends could probably find. But
So now it's time for you to play some more.
yeah.
You've seen how we did some markers and some pastels.
Oil
pastels, sorry. And we've used different tools with the same medium.
Wait for that salt for those pictures to dry, and then take it to the trash can and wipe off the salt, and it'll keep your texture but not put your salt all over the house.
And clean up after yourself.
Yes, please.
So mom and dad will let you keep doing it.